Welcome to the Fall 2020 Ladies Big Book Study Recording Series. My name is Kimberly and I am a recovered alcoholic. I am the facilitator of a tri-weekly Big Book Study for ladies only, and we record each session so we can share the knowledge along with you. What we do is we read the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous line by line. We pause on each page and have discussion time to share our experience, our strength, and our hope on each page. You are more than welcome to follow along in this series and do the work of the steps of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. If you do need support at any time, please reach out to me in the Contact Us area of my YouTube channel, and we're happy to provide you with support. The online recordings are open to men and women. Do not be discouraged, gentlemen. Our ladies' point of view may offer you a different perspective. So welcome. I hope you enjoy. All right, ladies, continuing on page 47 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. That was great news to us, for we had assumed we could not make use of spiritual principles unless we accepted many things on faith which seemed difficult to believe. When people presented us with the spiritual approaches, how frequently did we say, "I wish I had what that man has. I'm sure it would work if I could only believe as he believes." But I cannot accept as surely true the many articles of faith which are so plain to him. So it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler beginning, a simpler level. Besides a seeming inability to accept much on faith, we have often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let us have a look at some of them. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century readily accepts theories of all kinds, provided they are firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories, for example, about electricity. Everyone believes them without a murmur of a doubt. Why this ready acceptance? Simply because it is impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without a reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no perfect visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? It is being constantly revealed as mankind studies the material world that the outward appearances are not inward reality at all. To illustrate, so we'll start on that first paragraph. I wish I had what that man has. You know, what a great line. How true is that for the alcoholic, you know? And it goes to AA number 3, the man in the bed. I'm a nobody. You guys are somebody, right? I wish I could do what you do, but I'm not you. I was just like you. We were all just like you. I once was someone who said, "Nuh-uh, no way, I'm not doing the God thing." But here I am, a big book thumper, toting God along the way, right? It can happen for anyone. The only requirement is that open-mindedness. And so, you know, we have to remember that most of us did start at a simpler level. And then we go on to talking about the faith and that stubbornness and sensitiveness and that blocking off that we do where we're like, nope, not going to have it. But it says, that sort of thinking needs to be abandoned. And my favorite is talking about, the practical individual is the stickler for facts and results. Well, there's a light switch right here. And I have a reasonable assumption that when I turn it on, my lights will come on. Why? Because that's what I believe. I've been told if I do this switch, the lights come on. Have I ever gone behind the plate and looked at the wiring? No. My bill is paid, so I have a reasonable assumption that when I hit that light switch, the lights are going to go on. My favorite example, because we can really relate it to prayer, is my cell phone. I've never called the cell phone company and asked them why. Prove to me how this text message thing works. I have a reasonable assumption that my bill is paid, my phone is charged, and I enter a phone number, type out a message, press send, and poof, it goes to the other person. I don't know how that happens. I've never asked the hows and whys of it. I just have that reasonable assumption because it works, and I was told that that's what it works. So I believe it. Similar to prayer. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and y'all told me prayer and meditation, that's how we contact God. We pray, and that's us talking to God, and we meditate, and that's us listening to God. And then y'all told me some simple tricks on how to do it. And because I tried it, and I saw it starting to work, I now believe it works. But when I got here, I was like, it doesn't work. I've been praying my whole life. I wasn't praying. I wasn't actually speaking to God and meditating and listening for his answers. So this is where we have to get into these believances and these reliances where, if you guys are telling us that this works, I'm going to maybe try it and see for myself if it works. It's that I always say the Yelp review for prayer and meditation and for God. I can't explain how it works. All I can do is I can tell you that it does, similar to my cell phone and the lights on my wall. Anybody want to talk more about page 48? Kelly D.
Hi, my name is Kelly. I'm an alcoholic, and I like how you brought up man number 3 and your whole idea of how we kind of wrap our crazy heads around it. And on every time it said prejudice, on top of prejudice, I put my old ideas. This is the new, that's the old. Let's get the spiritual thing going. Let's move along and try to practice what other people are doing. And I remember just praying and feeling like, do I really believe? No, but I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I'm going to believe that the reason why I'm sober, and it's been 3 days without a drink, that there's something, like you said, the switch, there's something working for me. And then the other thing that I really liked was, it was comforting to learn that we could commence at a simpler level, that it was comforting that was a promise, that if we learn, like, do this, that there's a promise there for us, that we can have that switch go on, and not have to go look behind, or the cell phone, or whatever, the examples. So anyway, thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I remember so vividly the first day prayer and meditation worked for me. And I got in my car and I literally called the girl who had given me the instructions, and I was like, holy crap, it worked! She's like, yep. And I've been a believer ever since. Some of you may know that story. Marianne, Toronto. You got to unmute. There you go.
Hi, friends. I am an alcoholic from Toronto. My name's Marianne. Grateful to be here. Grateful to be sober. I think the best, simplest thing somebody said to me was, your best thinking got you here. You're at an AA meeting for a reason. And I was complaining about God. And they said, well, how is not believing in God working for you, Marianne? And it just gently, it wasn't too gentle actually, but it just made me realize that I can't think this out. And they said, don't worry about the God thing. Just be willing to believe that all of us in this room were once where you are. And by doing what was said to do in this book, we don't have to live like that anymore. Because I would get stuck on that thinking I had to have contact with God on this step. No, I have to do this work to get the contact. I can start just by believing that all the people in the room were once where I was. But it was helpful to just say, well, your best thinking got you here, so let's try something else. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Alrighty. To illustrate, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at an incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. Right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an... Oh, wait, I went backwards. Sorry, guys. We read worldly books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists choose to believe that our human intelligence was the last word, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? We who have traveled this dubious path beg you to lay aside prejudice, even against organized religion. We have learned that whatever the human frailties of various faiths may be, those faiths have given purpose and direction to millions. People of faith have a logical idea of what life is all about. Actually, we used to have no reasonable conception whatever. We used to amuse ourselves by cynically dissecting spiritual beliefs and practices, when we might have observed that many spiritually minded persons of all races, colors, and creeds were demonstrating a degree of stability, happiness, and usefulness which we should have sought ourselves. I love that first paragraph in that prosaic steel girder, and I had never really thought of it until I did a little exercise to get over my fear of bridges, and I actually looked at a steel girder. But I like the chicken and the egg way more than the prosaic steel girder. You know, we are here, and I was very scientifically minded, but yet I still had a belief in God deep down, and I always had that question of, well, you know, if the Big Bang Theory started the universe, who made the bang? Who put those first particles there? There's something that came before that step. Where did that before the first step come? And that brings me to the chicken and the egg. So the egg is needed to make a chicken, and a chicken lays the eggs. So what came first? God. Otherwise, how did the egg get there to make the first chicken? And how did that chicken lay that first egg? That kind of got rid of my scientific mind thinking. Something had to always come before the first step. And for me, that's God. And then we go down and, you know, it talks about us. And I just had this pop out at me. And this is what I love about this book so much, that every time you read it, something new pops out at you. And what pops out of this is, instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, And what popped out on me today when I read that, and I'd never had it happen before, is all of us who think ourselves so almighty, right? Like we have this ego about us that it's weak to believe in God and it's weak to not be the powerful force that we are. But here, that line is saying, actually, it's amazing because we are this powerful, intelligent agent for God. And I just had that leap out, and I love that line today. And then in the bottom, it goes on to talk about, that word beg. That word is said a few times in this book. We beg you. We beg you. Why? Because if you're here, we want you to stay. We know it doesn't get any better. We know that this is the better way because we've experienced it. So once again, we're begging you to do this and lay aside prejudice. I saw Carol had her hand up. Carol, would you like to share?
Well, I just thought in the previous paragraph, when it talks about intelligent agents, that is our purpose. We need to spearhead everything God wants. That's all I have.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that sentence has never popped out at me like that today. It's awesome. Fern.
Hi, I'm Fern and I'm an alcoholic. All my life I was full of anxiety and fear, and it was a lot to do. I found out in my sobriety that children that are moved around with an alcoholic family a lot, it's trauma, childhood trauma, and at the same time I had a ton of prejudice against religion and normal people. I think my parents got it into my head that those people were boring. They were stupid because of their religion, and I was so lost. And I know my drinking escalated out of fear. I had so much anxiety and fear. It really helped me, and it's funny because I didn't know until a few years into my sobriety how those people were right, and how their lives were going along quite nicely, and my family's was not, and so it took a lot of sober years and working the program, and it was funny. As soon as I got my conception of a higher power, which I call God today, that fear left me. That anxiety left me, and I was like, I don't even have it today. It's like I do have a healthy fear of going out because my mental thinking was sliding into a bad place, but I feel pretty confident today that God has been there all the time, and I just stopped reaching out and reaching out to you guys, and so anyway, I do find that I have a degree of stability and happiness and usefulness in my life today that I didn't have before. Anyway, thanks. That's for me.
Thank you so much, Fern. Yeah, I used to see the church folk, and it's like, oh, they're boring lives. They're so simple, and I thought my life was so full, but it was full of chaos. And now it's like, no, their lives were fuller than mine. You got your hand up. You don't have your name in your name. We're wearing glasses and a gray sweater. You gotta unmute.
Yes, hi, I'm Emily.
Emily.
I don't know if I'm going to get my name here. This is my first time.
Awesome.
And at this meeting, and it was highly touted to me by a friend. So actually, this section really doesn't apply to me. I'm not agnostic. I was born into Catholic, and I believe, but I didn't really take it seriously somehow. There wasn't really any spirituality in my life growing up. We had a very dysfunctional family, and it was not working very well. So I just slowly moved away from that. In school, it was Catholic too, and I just mouthed the words, went along with it, and didn't really pay attention. And when I left home, I said, I got this. It's my turn. I'm getting out of this place. I've got the control, and I just went full bore down the line for 50 years, all with that attitude. I'm not even kidding. It was insane. I was so in denial. But slowly but surely, I did get the picture that I really needed help. And I came back out from the States and almost drank myself to death because I didn't want to let go. And I had no hope whatsoever. I hated myself. I hated everybody else. You know the story, right? You get into that horrible 6 days. So I've just come out of treatment in December 1st, and I've got a year and like a few days. And today, and well, during the steps, I finally, well, it's all about God, right? And I revisited him and my belief before, and embraced him because I would never get sober otherwise, and because it's all about God and his power and his gift to me, and I didn't take that seriously. I mean, I didn't take that lightly. I was determined, you know. I actually got to detox, and I went to Hannah House in Maple Ridge, and I never fought the system. It was really quite funny because, you know, like you're supposed to, we think we know it all, and if someone tells us different, you want to say, well, wait a minute. But I learned really fast, and I caught myself finally just shut up and listen, and you'll hear more than you ever expected to hear. And I believe I actually had a couple of little spiritual awakenings, you know, realizing I am so happy today. I've never been this happy in my life. And here I was lying in my bed, you know, on lockdown in this treatment center. It's wonderful staff, and look forward to every single day. It's not the chore. That was really heavy duty, 5:30 every morning. But I got used to it. I just did the right thing. So today, because of the steps, I'm training myself day by day to let it go. God is in charge. I can't be in control. I'm not in control. I'm only in control of me. I can't change what's around me. As we all know, we've tried and beaten our head and drank to death, and other things. But so I have finally, throughout the last year, just made a point of like getting up, saying good morning to God, and asking him to guide me through the day. I can't, because I'm so tempted, and it's never going to go away. I want the upper hand. I want to make things happen, and of course, they all have to be now. So it's really been funny and humbling. It's nice to be humble for a change. It's off my shoulders, you know, and open-mindedness, and just praying for guidance, and that's been a huge experience. But thankfully, I did have God. It wasn't a big deal bringing him back in, and he, of course, was waiting in the wings. So it's all been good ever since. It's not easy, but it's been good. That's the one thing I'm happy about. No more drinking, and I'm clear-headed as much as I possibly can be at my age. So thank you for my sobriety, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Emily.
Trip.
I got your name changed too, so now you're not Huai, you're Emily. And congratulations.
Right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Great story. And it brings up for me too, and it lends to that page 49 in that last paragraph where it says, you know, the prejudice even against organized religion. I myself, like Emily, was Catholic as well. I had a prejudice against the religion, but I transferred that onto God, and I was like, nope, not doing God. So, but it took me years to peel those layers away of the onion where I went, oh, my problem was with organized religion. My problem wasn't with God the whole time. But here's for 20 something years, I was mad at God when I didn't like organized religion. So that brings up a really good point. Anne-Marie.
Hi, I'm Anne-Marie. I'm an alcoholic. I'm talkative today. Your chicken and the egg. I've used the acorn and the oak tree as an example for years, but I just realized that it was just lip service. I was just, you know, stating the obvious to me. I finally realized that God or higher power had been in my life when I was listening to other people with their shares, the car accidents, the DWIs or DUIs or whatever, the jail terms, the lost driver's permits. None of that ever happened to me. I drove drunk, absolutely. I mean, I'd run out of wine and drive to the store to get more drunk. I'd have dinner at my parents and drive home tipsy. not fully drunk yet, I never once got stopped. But more importantly, I never once caused an accident. That wasn't thanks to my good driving. I'm sober now and I'm not a good driver. That was God helping me not bring total chaos to somebody else's life. And that's when I was able to say, okay, God does care about me. Because I used to say he's got more important things to worry about than me. He doesn't. And that's when that's when I became teachable. Put it that way. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Got it?
Okay, I got nervous. I couldn't even find the mute button. I'm Joanne. I'm an alcoholic addict, and God, things started to change for me when I turned to an old timer, and I was crying really hard. And I said, "How do you learn to trust in this program? I don't trust people. I don't trust any kind of form of God. I don't even trust me. I mean, how many days, I got up in the morning and said I was going to do this and this and it didn't happen. I could not trust myself. And so how do you trust? And he said, when you put together day after day of don't drink, go to meetings, ask for help, you put one foot in front of the other, you get up and you ask for help and you put your head on the pillow sober, and you start to build those days and you start saying what you're going to do and you do it, then you start trusting yourself and you get a feeling of what that might feel like. And for me, I've had my own struggles about higher power because I was religiously abused as a kid. But what I will say is, I turned my life and will over the care of booze and drugs. It was my higher power. It was magic. When I drank, it took everything that I wanted to feel away. And I trusted that for a really long time. When I really got into trouble is when I started to drink and I didn't get that feeling anymore. And I ended up with more misery than I had like good feelings from being drunk. But I developed a total reliance on alcohol and drugs. And then I come into a program and they're like, well, trust us. That took time. That took time. And I just lost my train of thought. Oh, and in the beginning, I couldn't trust this God, but I started to trust the women in the program. And in my second or third year, my sponsor at 10 years sober went out, and it broke my heart. And I turned to her sponsor because I didn't want to drink. So she said, just trust in the program. We're all human. And so that in some other situations, I realized I had to start believing something greater than human beings, greater than a bottle of liquid that could help me. And the only way I can say that my faith has been allowing myself to just be open-minded and see the experience of having a faith greater than the alcohol or dependency upon somebody else. And what I've seen happen is when I ask for help, that things happen. Coincidences happen, things happen, and I see it in other people. And I don't have to today, especially if you don't have to describe your higher power. You just have to be a witness to it. And the witness is, for me, when I got my first 24 hours, I was astonished. And so I'm here for the ride to see how my story unfolds with the help of whatever is helping me do that, because I know today that I was not destined to die early. And with that, I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Yvette! Hello!
Hi Bad Alcoholic. Hi, guys. Hi, Kim. Love you guys. Love this group. Anyway, yeah, I heard so many good things I had to chime in. So, yeah, the acronyms for God, group of drunks, the We program, power greater than ourselves, good orderly directions, gift of despair. And I was thinking about trusting the process. And that's still today, right? But and also when I was new, I too angry at God, myself, the world, you know how it is, but just disconnected. So my sponsor said, believe that I believe, and for some reason I was able to do that, and nature played a big part in my initial journey. And I was just thinking about something cute that I heard at a meeting a long time ago, that if God had a refrigerator, your picture would be on it. We're God's kids. Love you guys.
Oh, I like that so much. He's got a big refrigerator. Marianne.
Hi. So I think when I was taken through this book, I was really confused and twisted up. So the person who took me through this book, at the bottom of the page, had me put 568, contempt prior to investigation. And we went back to the spiritual experience, and the thing that jumped out to me was that if I have contempt prior to investigation, I live in total ignorance all the time. So all I have to do is just try, and it just, because as I said, when I first went through this book, none of it just got to be a word salad in my head. So I kept it really simple, and I use contempt prior to investigation every time my head says, no, you can't do that. That won't work. Blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Alrighty. Page 50. Instead, we looked at the human defects of these people and sometimes used their shortcomings as a basis of wholesale condemnation. We talked of intolerance while we were intolerant ourselves. We missed the reality and the beauty of the forest because we were diverted by the ugliness of some of its trees. We never gave the spiritual side of life a fair hearing. In our personal stories, you will find a wide variation in the way each teller approaches and conceives of the power which is greater than themselves. Whether we agree with a particular approach or conception seems to make little difference. Experience has taught us that these are matters about which, for our purpose, we need not be worried. They are questions for each individual to settle for himself. One proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. This power has in each accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record. Here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly made a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seemingly futility of existence, they showed the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Leaving aside the drink question, they tell why living was so unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. So my favorite line when I heard it was that missing the beauty of the forest because we were diverted from the ugliness of some of its trees. And that goes both for religion, but it can also be applied to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, this is not a program or a fellowship of people who are all well. This is a fellowship of people who are coming to get well. And I think sometimes people are diverted by the ugliness of a few trees, and they forget that this is not Wellness Anonymous. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, they miss that beauty that can be found in the collective because they are too focused on one or two of the ugly trees. And again, it talks about the personal stories that we just talked about before the meeting and what they are. The personal stories are a wide variation in which the teller approaches and conceives that power greater than themselves. So it's just the way that these people have applied this to their lives. And I love that it talks about how everyone can have a different approach. So we all have the same program. We're all practicing the same principles. We're all doing the same steps, but the approach some of us take is different. And that's okay. It's all right that, you know, I might have a different conception and a different approach than you. We all are here doing the same program of action, and how we apply that to our lives looks different for everyone. The point is that we're applying this same program to our lives. The way we apply that program is different, not the program that we apply. And I think it's important to make that distinction. But the one thing we can all agree on is that once we've gained access to and believed in a power greater of ourselves, the miraculous things have happened. That is the great news of this fellowship and of this book, is that, you know, we can all agree that this works. That once we've tapped into this greater resource, this power greater than ourselves, got this God consciousness, amazing things have happened to our lives. Like crazy stuff we can't even say. And that there's been that revolutionary change in their way of thinking and living. The way I think has revolutionarily been changed. The way I live my life, the peace and serenity that's in my brain, in my heart, and in my life is undescribable compared to the chaos. The chaos in my head, the chaos in my heart, and the chaos in my life when I was in my active alcoholism was insane. And the peace that I have today, it's revolutionary. I wish I could give rose-colored glasses to people to feel that sense of peace. And of course, it talks about the collapse, despair, the failure of our human resources, and finding that new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction. And that truly is what we're seeking here. And what we gain when we tap into that inner resource, that power greater than ourselves. New power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction. That's what God gives us. That's the gifts of this program. And then, of course, leaving aside the drink question, they tell how living was unsatisfactory. They show how the change came over them. So again, reinforcing what we are to share when we're carrying this message. We tell them why living was so unsatisfactory. We show how the change happened, and we are able to demonstrate the consciousness of the presence of God. And that there is the Yelp review for God and this program. And that there is where we get faith from. The faith and the hope comes from us sharing what it was like, what happened, and what we're like now. And what we're like now should be power, peace, happiness, and a sense of direction. Hopefully. I've had that happen to me, and that's why I do these studies, is I want to pass that information on. Anybody want to speak on 5051? Beverly.
Hi, everybody. Beverly, alcoholic. You know, I'm still tripping out on that on page 49, where it says that we could regard ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation. Wow. I never thought of it that way. You know, I'm not saying that I suffer from low self-esteem because I think about myself way too much. But I've always, through my whole life, I've kind of seen myself as the lovable loser. And, I've been able to, have a low profile and people have not expected too much from me, not only because of that, but because of my alcoholism. And I've always played small. And, reading this just makes me think, I don't really know anything. I don't know what God's plan is for me. I know that I need to be open. I need to, the biggest obstacles to sobriety for me are, as they say on page 48, obstinacy, sensitiveness, and unreasoning prejudice. I really have to question the way that I think. And thank you for this women's meeting, because it's really opening up my mind like you wouldn't believe. There's so much I don't know, and that I'm willing to access, a new power, maybe a whole new conception of God. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's ever evolving. If you're not growing, you're dying. And it's like, I played small. I didn't just play small. I wanted to be small because I didn't want any attention. I didn't think I deserved anything. Didn't think I had anything to offer. And now it's like, well, I've got to offer God stuff. I'm his agent. And I knew that, but that line hit different today. Marianne.
Hi, Marianne, alcoholic. At the bottom where it says this happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements, I have the steps. I wrote steps underneath that. Is that right or not right?
The requirements are open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, it talks about it happens immediately. As soon as we put that effort in, as soon as we make this decision, as soon as we accept this way of living, things start changing in little bits at a time. And usually other people notice it more before we notice it. Especially watching in the nighttime meeting, seeing the light come on in people. Like Evan is, I think, my all-time favorite. I remember his day one, and now he comes back and he's doing service. And our own Della was a baby when she came in. Lizzie too. It's incredible watching the light come on in people. What an amazing gift to be part of. And then we grow as a result, and our confidence in carrying the message grows as well. And like we're noticing today, new things pop out at the book of us, and say, hey, I've been in here the whole time, but why don't you read me today? Which is fun. Okay, we've got 5 minutes. Anybody else want to share? We're not going to read more because it'll make us go too far over. Anybody? Hands up. Talk about God. Faith. Joanne. Unmute.
I found my mouse. Okay. So, what came to mind about was learning this program, living this program, and carrying the message of this program. And even with time, I'm finding that I have to work really hard on honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness in conveying that message, and setting boundaries, and being humble enough to say, I'm your AA sponsor. We can talk about alcohol, but God also made therapists, and God also made marriage counselors and principals, and because our lives are unmanageable when we come in, and yet I understand what it feels like when your life is unmanageable and you're finally trusting one person and you're sharing everything. the one thing that I've noticed that has been really helpful, and I think it's God's way of helping me stay out of trouble, I really have lived into that saying, I just share my experience, my strength, and my hope. And if you get a lesson out of that, that's my higher power. And if you can identify with that, that's my higher power. There are people in my area, they're like, we're not your best friend. And it's kind of rude. It's a program where we can be gentle, and we can care and we can love. But as a person that is sponsoring, we love them enough to just say, I can't own your recovery, but I can share my recovery. And if you get something out of that, that is helpful, yay. That's God working in both of our lives. So that's what came to mind as we were talking. Thank you.
Thank you. And being humble enough to maybe say I'm not the right fit too. Early in sponsorship, I just wanted to be a sponsor. I wanted to help anybody who put their hand forward. Oh yeah, I'm available. But quickly I learned I'm not the right fit for everyone. I either don't share the same experiences, or maybe they need someone that is a different approach than myself. So being humble enough to say, I don't think I'm the right fit for you, but I wish you all the best with love, is a humbling bit too. Kelly D.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, ladies, for such an amazing meeting. I really am enjoying this meeting. I'm trying to get my kids out of my hair and make sure that everything is. This is just so great. I've done the big book, and I've done my steps several times, and it's just, you're right. Every time you do it again, something pops out, and I really, really am just so happy that I'm sober and that I'm here. And my first sponsee. I had 1 year of sobriety, about 1 year. I completed my 12 steps, and her name was Ellie, and she didn't believe in God. She didn't believe in God because she had killed her husband. She shot him because he was abusing her 4 children. And she believed that God wouldn't ever love her or take him into the czars of heaven because she had taken one of his. And it was really amazing that, in the end, she believed in God. She made restitutions of her harms, and she was talking to God every day. I have the chills right now thinking about Ellie. And her favorite color is purple. And she's not here anymore. And every time I see purple, I think of Ellie. And it was really an amazing thing to see her get the program and watch her. And still today, when I see people get that psychic change, it's just so amazing, because it happened to me and it happened for us. And just and also what you said about having somebody that doesn't the right fit. And I've used your will is too strong for me. This is how I practice my program. And if you don't want to call me, that's fine, but you can't call me and then not call me for a long time and then dump on me and then not want to do the work. So I've been through that too, and people still getting high or getting doing things, and you know what, it always comes out in the wash, and I just pray that they make it back and they get here and stay here, because this is a life beyond my wildest dreams. So you just brought me back to that, Kim, of thinking about Ellie and my sponsee. So thank you, everybody, Joanne and everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And your story just reminded me, I'm going to give a big old plug to the Saturday night speaker meeting on 164 and beyond, because on Saturday night, November 7th, our speaker is an atheist in Alcoholics Anonymous with multiple years sober. And I say that because it's a big deal. If you know a sponsee or someone who has major resistance to God, that's the speaker you want to bring them out to see. And it's also great for us to go and listen. He is literally on the curb of the sidewalk to the top of a mountain, alcoholic. So he has an amazing story. So of all the speakers we've had, this one I'm saying is that a do not miss, November 7th. And like I said, if you know anyone who is an atheist or who strongly dislikes God, invite them to that meeting to hear how someone who is an atheist has been successful in Alcoholics Anonymous for a long period of time. So that's Saturday the 7th of November, and Della already put the Zoom ID in there. So yeah, that's a good one to share with people because yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and it doesn't come up very often where you hear an atheist speaker. So with that being said, it is 12:02, so let's close on up.